What up? That's pretty close. But if I go too far, it's like, you're my bad, yo. Ooh. So, this is going to be a rant about thoughts that I've been thinking that I want to stop thinking because I kind of said it. Uh, so, there's no prep except for my mind. Uh, Fuck, that's it. Okay, here we go. Uh, Astrology is a thing, and if somebody wants to insist that it's not, without giving reasons that have like no further conclusions, then they're just being ignorant. But if someone makes valid points like logic and reason, and rhetoric, uh, and you both can just come to like a standoff where you're both like, well, I just don't have more information. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure. Here's a way that I've been thinking about it because there's people that I love that I want to tell to pay more attention to real things as the world is becoming more real. And I'm going to try and keep it simple. So, a good way to look at creation, existence, beingness, is like a family. So, offspring take on the characteristics of their parents. If we look at it in a cosmological way, solar systems form as a result of the processes that occur previous to that, in the formation of a galaxy or something like that. If you want to use that as an example, but I'd prefer if we go deeper. So everything that we see is part of a chain of cause and effect. But everything that we see is part of a chain of cause and effect that is more subtle too. And we can go hippy dippy, which is actually just becoming wizardry or um, muggles. Again, willful ignorance. You can not see whatever you want, yo. That's called psychology. um, it's like there's just like there's processes that occur um, when a sperm meets an egg that you can't quite see, but your belly gets big, and then you're like, yeah, pregnant. Right? It's like a simple way of putting it, but another way of putting it can also be. What's my lemon tree? Buy because it was a good price. Um, I get like a full view. Boom. I was just talking about the mirror. So, a more subtle event may be occurring atomically, electromagnetically, that precedes a more densely physical event. And in that way, we can consider that the first event was the parent of the second event, the child. So I think you've got the point. So I'm going to skip now to speaking more directly. Everything that is connected to everything that was and will be. through the chain of cause and effect. Time is a funny thing. We're not going to talk about it right now. But in the beginning, before the first form was formed, there was the first ineffable, the first less than formed but more than nothing. And its existence is predicated on necessity. So think it like it didn't, if it could just be a human like me, it would just do that if it wanted. But there's a process. And before there was anything, the first form formed. Before that was something in between, something just subtler. And it was formed the only way that it could. Because when there's nothing, your choices are limited. Similarly to when you're everything, your choices are limited, because it's like the paradox of choice. If you want to talk about it in a way that we can relate, it's like 20 different kinds of ketchup. It's like, well, what the fuck ketchup do I want to have? Just like that, just asking that one question takes more time and is harder to do than if there was just one ketchup or two. And so, out of necessity, the first subtler, less obvious form is formed. And the shape that it takes creates its child. And that process continues to the edge of creation as we know it, living it in this moment. Because wherever we are, we're really like a kind of furthest extent of the universe. So it's not an accident that, or a coincidence, or fucking luck, or good fortune, or any other nonsensible, ridiculous, convenient excuse of a reason that we are here and that things exist and the conditions are right. Now, I'm not even necessarily saying the moon is where it is and the sun is where it is and all that because of the way we think it is. That doesn't matter. I personally think that just about everything that's here was put here because that's more reasonable. If we conceive of the like giganticness of the universe, and that's just all what we can see, and the layers of it that we can allude to, and we can't, and there's all that we don't know, and how little power in like operation we have, and what magnificence we can bear witness to, and then there's so many gaps in our understanding, like the missing link. So we fill them with things that don't make sense, and we're just like, that's just the way it is. We evolved from slime and monkeys around this time, and we don't know. We've got all the dead monkeys before then. We've got all the dead monkeys after then, but around then, we can't find any dead monkeys like us. So, but just because we can't find dead monkeys like us doesn't mean that we're not right. I know this sounds stupid, but that's almost all science right now, especially physics. It's a lot of history too, especially ancient history. Fuck, like really, it's all really all history. History has just been used to cleverly manipulate us. Like I just saw something today. Uh, they're telling people that the phases of the moon are not waxing and waning anymore. Gibbous or whatever you say the word. It's like half bottom, half top, like kind of like they're different. And now those pictures are accurate. The moon's phases are fucking different right now. But they haven't been that way always. But that's what they're trying to say. If they're doing that now, then it's likely that they've been doing it forever. But I digress. Everything is connected to everything else through family. If we continue with this parent and child analogy. And the power in that is that what necessitated that first creation exists in the furthest extent of it. And the further away you get from that first parent, that first necessity, leverage of creation, the less leverage or potent creative power has. So, said in another way, that way it had to be exists in everything. And it's like the closest sliver to omnipotence that can exist. Anything further from that is less creatively leveraging. So we've got the planets revolving around us, and they were here first. And before they existed ineffably. They existed as an expression of a form that almost preceded it into existence, and then the mechanical processes kind of followed that form. Right? If you want to talk about it electromagnetically, you want to talk about it chemically, it's just like how we think we can predict the weather or anything. Which it's you can take that kind of reasoning if what I'm saying is harder to believe. But it's actually just, there's more consciousness to that. There's a whole lot of consciousness to that because consciousness is an aspect of all of this. But I don't want to get too crazy, especially if you want to just win the conversation. Because then if you just say one thing that's not really relevant, but they don't agree with, they'll think they win. Right? So this essence of being that created the planets and put them in their place did a similar thing to us. Now, the way that they put them in place is due to an order that is effective, efficient, harmonious, and for a particular reason. And the reason can be confusing seen on a small enough scale or on too large of a scale, right? Seen too close up in such a short period of time, it's like, why the fuck did that sun just blow up and obliterate all those suns? Or like, why is the Earth going through all the bullshit that's been going through for like the last 300,000 years, and especially like the last 6,000 years, but really just all that fucking time? Like, why would that ever make sense? Well, if you look in the span of a gazillion years and you look at the fruits that the tree of this experience bears, you're like, I'm gonna fucking do that. It sucks, but not really. When you're God or Godish. And then similarly, if you go back like too far, you're like, you miss out on how important it is to hold the door open for someone and how that affects everything. Because that's part of the necessity. That's what we're made out of. So that kind of that relationship, that existence, you can just actually use that, and if they're reasonable enough, and it doesn't, no one's right if you're able to talk about it and just create your own definitions of your own experience. That's magic. That's the beauty. That's the opportunity. That's what I could hope to create with you, with seeing as how I'm just talking to myself, but not really, ever. But we can go more physical. So it's interesting to say things in a certain way so as that they persist on the internet, if you know what I mean. Say, but don't say too much. Like, I don't say anything like racy culturally. I just tell like true things about existence. And it's like, oh shit. Like, there's one video already that's like, that's not, I'm just explaining science. Or I don't even like that word. I'm just explaining um, true rediscoveries. Don't take the color off. Frequency. It's very trendy. And it makes sense that it is because it's like all of a sudden we discovered we're made of cells. And then we start seeing them using technology, of course. So the Schumann resonance, familiar with that? Earth has a resonance. Really, everything that is has a resonance. Everything resonates. That is fundamental to that like preceding ineffable aspect of reality. We can call it the ether, and even that's kind of simple. But everything that is resonates, and thusly has a frequency. Longer waves and shorter waves. So the way that that works really simply is that shorter waves are more potent, have higher energy, and travel less fartherly. And then longer waves are slower and travel really farly. And to give you perspective, uh, what's a nanometer? Or hertz? Something like that. Not a nanometer, sorry. What's like something? I think like a terahertz or something like that is like 10 centimeters or something like that. I can't remember right now. But to give you a scope of reference, these waves, which are really more like spirals, because and then waves aren't real and waves aren't a thing. Waves, this is like a Ken Wheeler quote, but it's like so brilliant. I love it. Um, wave, there's no such thing as waves. Wave is describing what a thing does. It's not a wave. Same thing with particle. There's no such thing as particles. Particles is like describing what a thing looks like, kind of frozen in time, if you want to talk about it in those terms. Like, hi, I'm Elliot. I'm waving. In that way, energy, light, sound, frequency propagates, and the shape that it takes we call a wave because it is waving, but it is not a wave. It is itself. Where was I? Okay, so when, and I'm just gonna blow through these because you can fucking Google it if you don't know, and chances are you do. Alpha, when you're in alpha mindset, alpha brainwave set, it describes a certain personality that you can inhibit or experience, whatever. Beta, theta, delta, gamma, all that shit, right? So frequency affects the way that we experience existence. And the way that we can affect our frequency is by listening to binaural beats, apparently. Yes. But I say that like that because, uh, so like sounds and other things, other frequencies, can change our frequency. Well, I'll be. That makes sense. Unless you don't really know, and then now you know. Said another way, emotions affect your brain state because emotions affect the amount of energy any given part of your body is expressing. You are made like your nervous processes are electrical as well as chemical, and all of that uh, works to affect your frequency. So that means now that your environment, if your environment affects your mood, then your environment affects your frequency. And it also means if your environment is emitting a frequency, it can affect your frequency. And light is a frequency, often expressed as wavelengths, or like photons, but ultraviolet, infrared, everything in between, visible light spectrum is the frequency of light. And then obviously sound, from microwave to radio to infrasound. Yeah, infrasound. I say it and it sounds kind of dumb, but I'm pretty sure it's a thing. I'm pretty sure it's a thing. But either way, you get my meaning. So, so now here's another way that your frequency can be affected by other frequency by other frequencies around you, and then going back, those frequencies affect your mood, and your mood affects your thinking, and if your mood affects your thinking, and your mood is an environment, then your outside your skin environment can affect your thinking as well. P.S. Skipping to the end or not, just like a helpful like reminder. That means your thoughts, your frequency can affect your environment, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So now the Earth has a frequency, and its frequency affects our frequency. In fact, it affects it so fundamentally because we're born here, like we're the children of this of our parent, and our parents in this way are very much like Terra Gaia, Earth, and the Sun, and the Moon, and the Moon. Because what are parents anyways? Like, like we assume the duality of a male and a female, to just speak of gender and not sex identity. A male and a female make a child. Two makes one. Unless we're missing spirit. Like what? Like I'll reference like we'll call it the Holy Spirit, or or just spirit. But the like like the soul farm, but everything just nests in and is of, like it's not just male and female. It's male, female, and the essence of being. So actually it takes three to tango. What up? Just challenging dogmatic and indoctrinated thinking. That I know I'm kind of right, but I'm not trying to be right about anything. I'm trying to create questions that you solve on your own. Because that's how I got here too. And then if it's a good conversation, then I can do the same thing with you and you can tell me things that I don't know. Because they were what interested in you. All right, so we've established that frequency affects frequency, and that all the planets have frequency. Because if the Earth has frequency and the Sun has a frequency, everything is, and everything is connecting frequency. Oh, and I forgot to mention. So we talked about the 10 centimeter frequency lengths, like the longest frequency wavelength extends the whole breadth of the universe, right? Like it's really slow, but um, it's there. In fact, it's probably just what we call universe. Just like it's not a stanza, it's not the chorus, it's a verse. It's just one. It kind of spans the whole thing. It's a universe. Great song. Okay, so you've won by far a bunch of times over about this astrology thing. But let me kind of say one last thing. Not one last thing, one more thing, and then another last thing. This is how astrology is effective. How can Mars mean like warrior and like fiery and like bold, brash, like masculine, and Pisces be feminine and kind of mystical, all knowing, and also not giving a fuckish? Like, and I did that like right. That's so it's a planet. There's a zodiac sign. So like, how do these things have characteristics? Um, why aren't those just anthropomorphized, right? Because that's the go-to. We just saying it. And then I love that because it's like that's actually still right because what we say is. Why isn't that fucking awesome? Oh, I was cured by a placebo. So you cured yourself? How's that not fucking amazing? Like, isn't that the better? Should we be trying to do that with everyone? But that's the thing. That is the thing. That's been the strategy. Um, falsity has been our placebo. I didn't really say that right, but I don't want to get distracted because not having someone like right here, I'll just lose myself in you over there. The universe is singing. And the way that the planets orbit the sun, for instance, is a song. It's not happenstance. Uh, it's not gravity. Gravity is also not a thing, but that's another video. It's like again describing what something does. and even then poorly. But that can hardly be blamed because it's like, oh, we don't understand yet. What sucks is that it's been suppressed or discouraged, and that's where you get my little like angry. Like on the 3rd of December, the 3rd of December? No, on the 27th, 28th, 29th of November, end of November, Mercury is in Sagittarius, retrograde, which is to say that it's going forward, but to our eyes, it and experience, it's going backwards. Which means that if it looks differently to us, then the light is arriving to us differently, which is like the effect of retrograde. And I can't say this certainly, but I would guess that it's like some kind of inverse relationship, or if we go more three dimensionally, it's kind of like sideways or something, or slower. Maybe it's just that it's like Mercury's frequency, but just spread out a little longer. Anyways, Mercury retrograde passes to the beginning of Sagittarius, like third degree or something like that, and it meets up with Jupiter, which is moving forward. And it meets up with the Sun. All three of those planets. And I say that because they're all stars. So I can say that if they're all stars, they're all planets too. I say so. That is not a coincidence. It doesn't mean nothing. They got there by dancing. They got there because every planet communicates with every other planet frequently. And we're all trying to achieve harmony. But there can be something in our environment that is intrinsically not like our vibe. So I'm not going to even begin to guess at how the planets got where they got and the order that they got, because there's too many different theories and there's just too much truth coming out right now to make any kind of useful assumption about what we think we know about how we got here. But what we can still maintain is that things are the way that they are. And they got the way that they are because of relationship, relationship with their environment, albeit all powerful beings or each other, and necessarily both. So the way Mars vibrates with Venus, I couldn't resist, and Uranus, I just had to throw that in there. While going through um, the relationship of Jupiter and Saturn, and then the Neptune, like you can imagine them all as strings of music, and they're expressing something fundamental. And when they get to us, we call them emotions. We call them cycles and patterns. But that's how they evidence themselves in our matter. They are an expression of something more subtle on a deeper level. And we are of that as well. So if a planet is angry in a certain area, an area or house in the zodiac, or happy, or the way that they all play around with each other and affect each other, and then it depends on the house. It's freaking complicated because relationship is complicated. unless you recognize um, the patterns, because everything is patterned, and creating more patterns. And the only time that the pattern is not visible is when it's um, hidden, or we're seeing it from uh, too limiting a scope. Again, either too far or too close. If we can cultivate the ability to change our scope from small to close in any given, or from far to close in any given time, that's a very potent ability. And astrology helps us do that. Okay, I think I've made enough of a point on that, so to kind of go to my next. Basically, it comes down to resonance and harmony and disharmony, convergence, constructive um, interference, which is like kind of like creating amplitude. It's kind of like giving it power, or destructive interference, which is kind of like canceling things out. And while the stars circle and soar and do their dancing thing, like in cooperation and in relationship with everything else, um, all of these waves are helping and canceling each other out and everything. And, like, and when you were born, Mars was in wherever, like Cancer. Mars was in Cancer for me. I'm being a little cheeky. So, like when I was born, I came in with a bang, like my frequency was established from my ancestry, right? Because my parents' frequency was cultivated by their environment, and then so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. Like, so when a certain thing is in a certain thing compared to other things, that's going to affect me because I have that information. I have that in me because that's how I got here, either really strongly or less potently. So this is how you use um, this is how you use astrology to become very powerful. I didn't want to put this in anywhere, but if you're still with me at 3818, then good for you. And nice for me. Thanks for being here. This is what I ponder and think in my experience. So this is how you use the zodiac and astrology to become super awesome, strong, powerful. Roll with it. Take a lifetime. There's no rush. But start to learn whatever you want about astrology and focus on what's relevant to you now. That'll add up. And eventually, especially in the world that we're moving into, where like we're going to want to know important things, and astrology is super important. Like I just expressed how it basically, astrology is the word that we use to describe how frequency affects frequency on an astronomical plane. So that's the go-to. Roll with it. You know, you can kind of plan. You can perceive. Um, it's a new lens. You can see other people's kind of what they're vibing with, and it explains a lot. It explains a lot about environment and the way we all bounce off each other. Okay, so that's like the first, like, oh yeah, okay, that's how I can use astrology, obviously. And then the second is like not nearly as obvious, but nearly is like also don't take it like too seriously. Like don't let it rule you, because then you're letting your environment rule you. Period. And then your environment is not you. And worse, you conflict your frequency when you hit it too hard, you know? Because that's not what it's describing. It's not describing you knowing everything, it's describing you a part of everything. So you can totally fuck yourself up hard if you ascribe to it too much as a thing separate from you and as a ruler. You are the ruler of it. And I'll end with that, but not yet. This is, it's the second part of the secret. This is the first part of the secret. This is the secret of how you can use astrology to become super powerful. Sometimes astrology is basically going to tell you what you don't want to hear. It's not what you desire. It's not according to your plan. And we've already discussed rolling with it, not taking it too seriously. So I'm not going to go with it more in this scenario. But sometimes when astrology is like, don't do this, take this into account, maybe go slower or whatever, that is when you go fast. That is when you fucking hit it. That is when you say, I don't give a shit. I want this. I want this more than anything. Fuck you. Do it. And you try and not beat astrology. You try and be yourself no matter your fucking environment. Fuck astrology. Use it when it's useful, and then when it's not useful, uh, fuck it. Use other things. And try to accomplish. Try to do. Try to be, because one, sometimes that's what it's saying. It's like you're gonna get slowed down, but you're only gonna go slow down if you try and go fast, and you want to go fast because when fucking the thing Venus is not in retrograde anymore, which is just relevant because it's coming out of retrograde in like a few days of this casting. Like the benefits that accrue from that only come from you trying to create those benefits first and them not happening because that's what it was describing. And you didn't do that. So everything is just to a lesser degree. And then it's like, lukewarm. Rolling with almost like, rolling with just the environment, but not in the direction of your choosing. In my experience over the last year, we'll say, because fuck, it's been a year, but especially the last 7, 8 months, and then especially the last few. So basically, exactly the same as all of you. I've really been really sensitive and really paid attention to my astrology, and some of the, I don't know if best is really the right way to put it. Magnificent, crazy, cool, unbelievable achievements and happenings have occurred totally fucking in line with astrology. But only because I tried my hardest to beat it. And not it. I was just like, I'm not waiting. I can't wait. I gotta do this thing. What thing? What I'm doing. There is no time. I'd love to wait. You know? And then I can look back and it's like, wow. It's like this auspicious date and this auspicious event in my life is occurring. But I was really trying to make it happen like for 3 weeks now. And if I hadn't been trying to make it happen for 3 weeks, it wouldn't be happening. And maybe more powerful than that is not actually what shows up in the third dimension, or what manifests in your life. It's astrology throwing shit at you for you to overcome. It's like, here's a fucked up vibration. See if you can maintain your high vibration while I fucking throw this at you. And maybe just shitty things happen. Because you can manifest anything you want when there's nobody else in existence. Or when your frequency is that powerful. Or in a band that nobody's listening to. Right? Like, but even then, we don't exist in isolation. So it's not about manifesting what you think you want. It's about going for it and listening to yourself and understanding your environment and knowing when to push and when to pull and when to say all right and surrender and when to say fuck it. Because when Saturn says that you should be controlling, and you are a little bit controlling, but way less controlling. Like, to yourself, you're not controlling because you know yourself, and you didn't control. Then when Saturn is in a different vibe, in a different relationship, you've still got that resonance. So when it's back in that vibe, or when the environment takes on that frequency or anything like that, you've got experience, practice, you've got the skill of choosing. And free will is a part of the mystery of this dimensional being. And I'll end with this. When you can maintain a frequency of love and light and passion when the stars say otherwise, your frequency affects their frequency. And you change the stars. Don't believe me? Look up. Look at what the world is doing. And look what we're doing with her. I'm just picturing star-crossed becoming star curvature, star encircling, and then almost like inverse conically, spirally, and then becoming a little parallelly or parallaxy. Okay, good. I appreciate that. I really wanted to just talk that through and get that out of my mind. I'm not sure, again, if this will be viewable and for how long it will, and I'm not counting on it. But I will say here at the end that for any of my videos, if you want me to actually prepare something, it's not going to be more time because I take way less time when I prepare, which is why I don't prepare because that takes more time. But if you want to know anything that I talk about more in depthly, leave comments, talk to me, and it will be my pleasure to discuss it, more completely, and not because words are meaningless and forgettable, and I just can't count on them. So, in case that came off any other way, what I mean is it'd be my pleasure, not to tell you more of what I know, but to connect with you. And do this together more fully. That's my pleasure. Also, this feeling here, which is the feeling that I get in the future now as you're watching. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful everything. And I'll catch you later. I love you. You? Yeah, you. Trust me. I do. Namaste. I do. Love you.